Welcome back, viewers. This is James Kalm, the guy on the bike, bringing you another episode of Half-Ass Productions. Today, we're going to try to go up to the Christie's showroom and see an exhibition of work by Forrest Bess. We're up here on the 20th floor, and this is really an historic exhibition. I've been in New York for about 30 years, and it's only been one or two times that they've ever had a really good grouping of this work that's been visible. Now we're going to start in here with some of the early figurative work. These are from, I guess, the late 30s. Now, this is titled Mexican Boy 1938. And you can see how he was very much an expressionist and some kind of naive. This is Untitled. But you can see that he did have a feel for the paint. This piece is titled Boxer. This is titled Greek Fisherman, 14 by 16 inches. But you can see this kind of a metaphorical study here, the male versus female. This is a great piece. This is maybe one of the first pieces where he starts to go into the abstraction, and I was just talking to one of the attendants here, and he was saying that this is loaded with his symbols and his images. Evidently he had a whole list of different forms and shapes that had these symbolic meanings for him and his alchemy or whatever his theories were. This piece right here is maybe one of the most unusual things that I've ever seen by Forrest Bess. This is titled The Search. Now this is plywood, oil on plastic, glass, and wood, 1946. And geez, in certain ways this kind of reminds me of what Irene Rice Pereira was trying to do, and maybe mixed in a little bit with something like a Cornell box, but looks like he's got about 3 or 4 levels of glass that he's working on there to give it kind of a three-dimensional quality. That's 24 by 26 by 8¼ inches. Well, now we'll move into the probably what everybody knows more as the Forrest Bess paintings. This is Untitled, and I think Forrest Bess is really a kind of a seminal artist for a lot of young painters these days. This is also Untitled, 9 1/8 by 12 inches, and I think it's because he's kind of a lone abstract artist. This is also Untitled, 9 by 10 3/8, and if you get into his story, you find out that he was a very kind of bizarre, creative individual. Surprisingly, these two pieces have an almost minimal sense about them. But I think the great thing is that he was able to use very simple means and get some very kind of interesting and innovative approaches to abstraction. It's titled Spots. And he does all this with a very kind of a simple, straightforward technique. It's Untitled 1952. 7 by 10 1/8 inches. This almost makes me think of maybe a Philip Guston painting from the late 60s. Now, Forrest Bess was from Texas. I think he lived in Bay City, Texas. It's called Red Rain. 1967. And he lived most of his life as a fisherman and bait salesman. He spent a lot of his time out on an island, I guess out in the Gulf of Mexico. Well, so he's got all these little symbols in here. Now, they have listed some of his symbols that he's developed here in the guide, so this gives you an idea. If you see some of these in the paintings, this is what he was dealing with. This is a wonderful piece. It's Untitled, 1952. This is an 8-inch square. And I was actually also like a very sensitive colorist. It's titled Star. Anyway, he had a lot of strange ideas about being a morphodite and alchemy and a lot of kind of obscure metaphysic and occult things. And I guess that he derived a lot of his symbols from his studies of alchemy and things. It's Untitled, 1957. And this was sometime in the mid-50s. He performed some self-surgery and cut a hole in his urethra right near his scrotum. This is called Dedicated to Van Gogh. And he had the idea that that would help him somehow become a hermaphrodite, and by being a hermaphrodite he would be uniting the two primal human forces, and somehow he would become a superhuman. If you just look at the paintings, see that he does have a real, almost natural, naive sense of the materials. Oh, that magenta sun is beautiful. This is Untitled. You know, I've been watching or looking at his work for years now, and although there is a kind of a beauty and elegance to a lot of it, there's something else about it that's almost kind of disturbing, almost kind of brutal. This is titled Chinquapin, 1967. The other interesting thing is that I think all of this is painted with palette knives. She's got very good facility. Look at those stripes. This is maybe one of the larger pieces in the show. Well, now as I understand it, most of these works were inherited by a couple of people in Texas, and they've held them in their safe deposit boxes for the last 30 years. This is Untitled. You know, on the wall label at the beginning of the show, they talk about his fantastic use of different types of surfaces, and this is a great example of his use of blacks. We've got a very matte, dry black. You've got a grainy black. Some of the other pieces, you've got kind of a shiny, knifed-on black. Oh, as I look closely at this, it's got like silver metallic paint on those rings. Kind of makes me think of maybe an Alfred Jensen or a Helma Aufklimt. This is Untitled. 14 1/4 by 15 7/8. It's also got that grainy black, but a very simple composition, almost childlike, until you get up and look at it and realize it's got a little more, I don't know, anxiety. Untitled 1960. I guess he was showing in New York with Betty Parsons, had several shows from, I guess, the early 50s until the mid 60s. And I think it was only maybe 150 of his paintings owned, and at some point he lost his life's work during a hurricane in Texas. This is great. This is titled Mandala, 1967. And here again we get to see this kind of wonderful surface that he was able to achieve with the knives. It's untitled 1967. Now, he used to say that these paintings basically were dictated to him, that he would see these images on the inside of his eyelids before he went to sleep or just after waking. I think Forrest Bess definitely has a feel for his grays. And this is a really good example of what I was talking about when I said there's a kind of almost disquieting, disturbing, kind of brutal approach to the subject. This is not sweet. It's titled Untitled The Void number 2, 1952. And he's using a lot of bare canvas in this one. Now, I guess they've also supplemented this collection of work with some pieces from museums. This is also another kind of simple looking but very kind of subtle and complex. He's got some things collaged in there. Oil and painted foil collage on canvas. This is another larger piece. Untitled 1959. Now, I don't know whether he intended this crackle or whether that just happened spontaneously, organically, but really adds to the painting. Now, I've seen this painting before. This is beautiful. It's titled The Dicks, 1946. I think in a lot of ways that, although he was living out in Texas, that the work did relate to and probably was comparable with some of the best of the abstract expressionists. This is Denarius, 1954. The Penetrator. This is 1967, which I guess is about the end of his most creative period. Yeah, I think he died at a rest home from skin cancer in 1977. That's punchy. This is Untitled The Penetrator. And, well, you could put this in an art show out in Brooklyn today and people would think it was right off the easel from yesterday. Another untitled, The Black Bitch. Somehow he was able to come up with these very strange images, and very rarely do I see him repeating subject matters or color combinations or anything else. This is untitled, very fresh. Oh, this is homage to Ryder, Albert Pinkham Ryder, 1951. I think his frames that he sticks on there are kind of unusual as well. Oh, that gaseous yellow is horrible. This is untitled. And I would assume this is probably one of the later paintings as well. See, his frames got a little slicker, more finished towards the end of his life. This is untitled, 1968. 16 by 16 inches. Now this almost verges into the realm of kitsch. Although he does it with a kind of naive urgency that kind of keeps it authentic. Untitled, 1959. This kind of makes me think of the whole John Walker's series of the, I think we titled the Alma paintings. 10 by 8 inches. It's untitled. Now this is another one of these kind of deceptively simple-looking pieces, but that shade of gray against that particular tint of yellow, that's fabulous. It's 1967. Also untitled, 1967. Yeah, that little detail of the dotted line there, that's unusual. Well, we're almost done. This is untitled. We got a crab and then one of his strange symbols. This is untitled, 1967. And a whole bunch of raw canvas in this one as well. It's got a great sense of line. Oh, that looks like brushwork. Oh, this is an odd piece. Untitled, Oil on Masonite, 1958. 1952. It's kind of a metallic paint that he's got a little kind of a sunburst out of. Well, that's been a run-through of Forrest Bess here at CHRISTIE'S. Thanks, Kate. We're here at the Whitney Museum, and we're going to try to sneak in and get some pictures of the Forrest Bess installation that was curated by Robert Gober for the 2012 Biennial. Well, I actually came by for the Whitney Biennial, but I got run out. We ran out of time for the press preview, so I'm sneaking back in here. Here's the wall legends. And this is the list of symbols that Forrest Bess used in his paintings. This is maybe one of the most unusual paintings that I've seen. This was actually a commission. I guess it was maybe never delivered. And it's titled The Noble Carbuncle. And he's got all of his alchemical images in here. He's got this unicorn. And that's a lion with his feet cut off. I don't know exactly what the significance of that is, but it is an ancient alchemical symbol. And that's also maybe one of the largest pieces I've seen by him. It's a beautiful little piece, and it's got a very kind of desperate, decrepit frame on there. And he's got his little forms on there that kind of look like throwing sticks or maybe an Australian boomerang. Now, this is actually a piece that's owned by Andrew Masulo. He's a very lucky guy. I think this one is titled 12A. But this gives you an idea of how he kind of mixes the very formalistic, straight abstraction with something else. That little slab of pink sliding off the side is kind of disturbing. You get to see Andrew's name on the list. This is another beautiful little piece that I've seen reproduced several times, and it makes me think of Picasso's sculpture where he used the bicycle seat and the handlebars to create the head of a bull. But again, we got the great grays that Forrest Bess uses so beautifully. And those look like little critters running across a plain back there. Now, there's no photography allowed in here, so I'm doing this all on the down low. This is an interesting piece, and this central area, the gold-leafed area where he's incised this grid, is kind of a different approach, you know, and I never saw him use a lot of this gilt or this gold leaf before. And there's a case here that's got photographs of his self-surgery and some of his correspondence with people like, yeah, no pictures. No pictures, please.
No, I'm not taking pictures.
Some of the pictures of him and his incision were so upsetting. Yeah, I just had to skip over them. This is another interesting piece, and if we've looked back on some of the other things that we've seen, you know, he was actually using a lot of references to landscape, and especially kind of coastal waterfront landscape, and in that way I think he kind of relates to Albert Pinkham Ryder. This is an interesting piece, and he's got his triangular symbols in there, and this has got a black slat frame on there that I haven't seen in too many other pieces. I wonder whether they did this after he died or whether he framed this himself. I think this is also an extraordinary piece. Now, I don't know, but I heard rumors that when Julian Schnabel was living in Texas, that he actually went down and visited Forrest Bess when he was at the rest home towards the end of his life. And in certain ways, the kind of the colors, that sickly pink, remind me of some of the early Schnabels I remember seeing back in the late 70s, early 80s, and the cracked paint is nice. This is another interesting piece, and we're almost getting to a kind of a landscape sense with this, and they've got a little garland of flowers over this form. Almost looks like a little kind of head shape. Anyway, this has been James Kalm sneaking into the Whitney Biennial to take a look at the installation that was curated by Robert Gober for the 2012 Whitney Biennial, Forrest Bess. Oh, thanks for not busting me, sir. And thank you, Kate.
Wow, that was excellent. Was that true? That's what I said.